They won't notice the first day you change. They never do. The world doesn't see the silence where transformation begins. It only sees the results too late to stop you. But you feel it already, don't you? That quiet tension in your chest. Not anxiety. Readiness. You're not looking for motivation anymore. You're looking for a mirror, something to reflect back what you've always known but never fully lived. And maybe, just maybe, this is it. Not another hype video, not another morning routine. This is a declaration that you're done waiting to be chosen, that you're done explaining potential, that the version of you they never saw coming is about to arrive silently, slowly, and all at once, and it starts here with one decision. And 90 days the world will never see coming, becoming undeniable. The 90-day transformation. No one sees coming. Nobody sees it coming. They see the surface, the highlight, the after. But they never see the decision, that quiet, defiant moment where you finally look your comfort in the face and say, I'm done living like this. Not angry, not panicked, just certain. The truth is you don't need a new year, a new plan, or a fresh start. You need one thing, a line in the sand, a moment that splits your life into before and after. And when it happens, it won't be loud. It won't come with fireworks. It will be still, almost invisible. But something deep in you will shift, and the world won't recognize you after that. This is the moment. Not tomorrow, not when I'm ready. Now, because becoming undeniable doesn't begin with more motivation. It begins with more conviction. There are two types of people in this world, the ones who wait to be chosen and the ones who choose themselves. And if you're listening to this, you already know which one you're meant to be. You've been underestimated, overlooked, second-guessed, maybe even by yourself. But there's something in you that refuses to die. Call it fire. Call it faith. Call it the ghost of who you could be knocking. And if you ignore it for too long, it starts to ache. It keeps you up at night, not because you're afraid of failure, but because you're afraid of success that never had the chance to exist. You were not born to blend in. You were not designed to coast. You are one of the few, the builders, the dreamers, the dangerous and not dangerous in noise, dangerous in focus. Dangerous because once you decide you don't stop, you don't explain, you execute. But let's be clear. This isn't a feel-good fantasy. It's war, not against anyone else, against the old you, the version that broke promises to themselves. The one who lived for short-term comfort instead of long-term greatness, the one who negotiated with excuses and lost every time. That version is getting replaced. Not someday, now. And here's how it happens. Not in a grand public shift, but in 90 days of radical discipline. 90 days, that's all it takes. Not for hype, not for inspiration, but for a full identity shift. Because if you stack the right actions for 90 days, without deviation, without compromise, without apology, you become undeniable. Not because the world says so, but because you believe it. And belief built on proof is unshakable. So let's get brutally honest. What's been stealing your momentum? Distraction, scrolling. Comparison, telling yourself stories like, I'll get serious when I'm less busy. I'll start when I feel more motivated. But here's the truth. No one tells you. The future doesn't care about your feelings. And neither does greatness. Greatness doesn't wait. It doesn't pause for your convenience. It passes by the ones who hesitate and rewards the ones who move. Not perfectly, just decisively. Look back for a moment. You've already survived your worst days. You've already proven you can take pain. So now the question is, can you take discipline? Can you sit in repetition without applause? Can you show up when no one claps and nothing feels exciting but your future demands it? That's what this transformation requires. Not a new version of your life. A new version of you. One that doesn't ask, What should I do today but declares, this is who I am now. And who you are is not built by thought. It's built by habit. It's built in the trenches of routine. And every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, you're casting a vote for the identity that keeps you stuck. But every time you follow through, even when it's hard, especially when it's boring, you're casting votes for the person you're becoming. And that version, the undeniable version, he doesn't negotiate. She doesn't wait for energy or clarity. They decide, then align. So here's the invitation. Not to feel better. To be better. Not to watch someone else's rise to craft your own. And yes, it's going to hurt. Growth always does. That's why most people run from it. They choose distraction because it numbs the pain of unused potential. But you're different because you're not just tired. You're tired of living a life that doesn't reflect who you really are. You're tired of talking about what you're capable of. You want to prove it to yourself, to the world, to the younger version of you that still believes in your fire, even if you forgot for a while. So what does it take? It takes the next 90 days of relentless alignment. Not intensity, not perfection, consistency. That's how you go from invisible to undeniable, because 90 days of stacked habits, 90 days of locked-in focus, 90 days of non-negotiable execution will do more than change your schedule. It will reprogram your identity. And once your identity changes, you don't need motivation. You are the motivation. So mark this day, not in your calendar, in your spirit. This is where the old rhythm ends and the new one begins. This is the day you stop trying to upgrade your life and start upgrading yourself. You've waited long enough. You've watched others long enough. Now it's your turn to become the one they don't see coming. The 90-day transformation isn't magic. It's math. It's momentum. It's mastery. You don't need another tactic. You don't need another planner. You need a decision so deep it rewires your nervous system. A decision that becomes your new center of gravity. So when the chaos comes, you don't move. You hold because the world doesn't break the strongest. It breaks the inconsistent. The ones who float between desire and discipline. The ones who only act when the feelings line up. But the great ones, the undeniable ones, they act regardless. They don't wait for clarity. They create it. They don't chase passion. They build it. They don't seek balance. They choose alignment. Let's talk about alignment. Alignment is when your identity, your routine, and your vision all shake hands and say, this is who we are now. It's when there is no friction between thought and action, no hesitation between idea and movement. That's the kind of power you're building now. But alignment doesn't come from reading quotes. It comes from saying no to distractions, no to mediocrity, no to anything that fractures your focus or scatters your soul. Because focus isn't something you stumble into. It's something you protect. 49. You don't rise because you're busy. You rise because you're intentional. And the first step toward becoming undeniable is this. You cut the noise, you audit everything. The people, the habits, the rituals that drain your discipline, and whisper, it's okay to settle. Because when you eliminate distraction, you give momentum space to grow. And momentum is not built-in chaos, it's built-in clarity. You don't need more input, you need more integration. You've got enough knowledge. What you need now is execution. Let's get tactical. Every morning before the world grabs you, grab your vision. You sit with it. You breathe to it. You don't scroll. You don't check. You don't absorb. You declare, this is who I am. This is what I'm building. This is how I move. Because if you don't program your mind, the world will. And you already know what happens when you run your day on someone else's code. You live a version of their life while yours quietly rots behind the curtain of good intentions. So you build systems. Not goal systems, because goals give you a destination. But systems build the vehicle that gets you there on days when you don't feel like driving. Ask yourself, what does the most focused version of me do each morning? How do they train? How do they work? How do they show up when no one's watching? Then do it again and again until it becomes second nature, because the goal isn't to try. The goal is to transform, and transformation requires proof, not promises. You want confidence? Then build evidence. You want discipline? Then build repetition. You want peace? Then build structure. Because structure is what gives a storm its shape. Without it, pressure crushes you. But with it, pressure builds you. So let's build. Start with your mind. That's the command center. What you feed it will determine how you feel, and how you feel will try to dictate how you move. But you're no longer led by feelings, you're led by standards. So every day you train your mind, not with fluff, with force. You study high-quality content. You read pages that challenge you, not pacify you. You reflect, you journal, you track. Because thoughts are like weights. If you don't control the ones you lift, they will crush you. Next, the body, because your body isn't a side effect of success. It's the engine. The stronger it is, the more pressure it can carry. The sharper it is, the longer you can sustain momentum. You don't have to look perfect. You have to command yourself. And every time you move with intensity, you reinforce the story. I follow through. I lead myself. I finish what I start. Then there's your craft, your work, your dream. You give it focused time every single day, not multitasked. Time? Not fit it in. If I can time, sacred time. Because that dream? That's not a hobby. It's a calling, and you don't betray a calling for convenience. You sit in the chair, you do the work, you repeat the process, because you're not building for applause, you're building for impact. And finally, stillness. Stillness isn't weakness, it's weaponry. Because when you train your mind to sit in silence, you reclaim control from a world addicted to noise. You find clarity, you find breath, you find that quiet voice that says, keep going, this is working, even when it feels like it's not. Most people never hear that voice because they're too busy avoiding the silence that reveals their truth. But not you, you enter the silence. You own it. Because a leader who can master silence can lead in any storm. So now you have the pillars, the daily anchors. And with them, you stop waiting to feel aligned. You start acting in alignment. And every time you do, you prove to yourself that you're no longer the same. And if you stay with it, if you execute on this path for 90 straight days, the world won't recognize you. But more importantly, you won't recognize the version of you who needed motivation just to move, because you'll have become undeniable. I'm about to tell you the most important thing. But before I go any further, please support me with a like and a sincere comment. They won't see it happening. You'll still show up the same way. Same job, same clothes, same silence. But something inside of you will be different. Not louder, stronger. The kind of strength that doesn't beg to be seen. It commands space just by walking in the room. And that's the truth about real transformation. It's quiet. At first, no one notices. The morning you wake up earlier than usual. No one claps when you skip the scroll and open the book. No one cheers when you choose to move your body, instead of drowning your energy in excuses. But those small shifts, they're tectonic. They're reprogramming your identity in the background. And by the time they notice, you'll already be gone. Gone from old habits. Gone from the mindset that needed to be convinced to act. Gone from the loop of starting and stopping, starting and stopping, starting, and never finishing. You're done with that cycle because now you understand repetition rewires reality. What you repeat, you become. Not what you wish for. Not what you journal. What you do. And now you're doing the things that shift the gravity of your life. You've decided. And when you decide, the world bends. People will start asking what changed, but they won't like the answer. Because the truth isn't sexy, it's sacrifice. You gave up what was easy. You gave up the comfort of scrolling. You gave up the thrill of being reactive. You chose focus. You chose systems. You chose the boredom that births greatness. Because here's the law. The universe doesn't reward potential. It rewards proof. It rewards consistency. It rewards the person who says, "I'll show you who I am by who I become." And when you become undeniable, they don't question you. They watch you. They'll watch your energy change. They'll feel your standards rise. They'll notice you don't chase. Anymore, you attract. Not because you've become arrogant, but because your frequency changed. You no longer beg for room at the table. You build your own table, and the right people feel it. The wrong people fall off. Let them. Because elevation comes with separation. You don't get both. You don't rise and stay liked by everyone. You don't evolve and stay understood by the old crowd. You're not being rude. You're being real. And real growth is often lonely, but it's worth it. Because for the first time, you're proud of yourself in private. You're not doing it for applause. You're doing it because you know what it costs to keep betraying yourself. You've lived that life, the one where you say, "I'm going to change," but nothing changes. The one where you keep telling others what you're going to do. And they nod, but deep down, they don't believe you anymore. Worse, you don't believe you anymore. But that's over now. You're not chasing hype. You're collecting evidence. You build your confidence. One promise kept. One task finished. One boundary honored. And slowly your nervous system starts to trust you again. Your brain stops questioning if this time is different. Because now you don't talk about it. You prove it. You prove it by the way you move, by the silence you keep, by the days you show up when no one sees. Because real work doesn't require an audience. It requires integrity. And you're building that now brick by brick, day by day. Understand this. The first 30 days are friction. The next 30 are foundation. The last 30 are flight. In the beginning, your old self fights back. It tempts you. It tells you you're doing too much. Rest a little. Skip today. But it's not your soul talking. It's your past begging not to be buried. Ignore it. Because if you listen, you start the cycle over. And you weren't built for circles, you were built to ascend. And yes, it will hurt, but pain is temporary. Regret is not. And if you can just hold the line, hold the standard for 90 days, you will become someone unrecognizable to your past. That's not marketing. That's biology. That's how neuroplasticity works. That's how identity shifts. Your brain doesn't care about what you say. It watches what you repeat, and if you repeat clarity, focus, discipline, it will start carving a new path. That's what makes you unstoppable. Not your talent, not your speed, your consistency under pressure. You don't have to move fast. You have to move daily. You don't have to feel motivated. You have to feel committed. You don't have to know it all. You just have to know what matters and guard it with your life. This is the price of power. Not the flex, not the cars, not the validation. The price is attention. Sustained, directed, ruthless attention. And most people can't afford it. But you can. Because you've stopped paying attention to everything that doesn't pay you back. You've cut the noise. You've found the rhythm. You've realized that if your life feels chaotic, it's because you never trained it to be calm. And calm is not weakness. Calm is control. Calm is clarity. Calm is a man who knows exactly who he is, what he does, and where he's going. That's you now. You've stepped into it. The quiet confidence, the focus. The identity of someone who doesn't chase success, but moves like success is inevitable. And when you move like that, people feel it. Even before they see it, you don't need to tell them you've changed. They'll feel it. They'll see it in the way you walk into a room, not seeking permission, but carrying presence. Not asking for opportunities, but becoming one. This is the shift. From noise to power, from reaction to intention, from scattered potential to focused execution. You're no longer trying to build a life around ease. You're building it around alignment, because you've learned the hard truth. Comfort is the cage. Discipline is the key. And purpose is the fire that melts the lock. You've stopped asking, what's the fastest way? Now you ask, what's the most aligned way? And that question changes everything. It cuts through distractions. It silences the noise. It anchors you when temptation whispers, just this once, because now you don't entertain negotiation. Not with your schedule. Not with your integrity. Not with your old self. You've walked too far to turn back. You've seen what happens when you live without structure. You've felt the anxiety that comes from living out of alignment. And now you're building the system that protects your peace. Not just your productivity. That's the truth no one talks about. Structure isn't about control, it's about freedom. It's about creating boundaries that keep your power from leaking. It's about creating rituals so solid that even on your worst day, your standards don't fall. Because now you understand. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And when the system is built to protect your mission, you become dangerous. Not because you're always motivated, but because you've removed the option of falling back into chaos. You've started designing your life like a fortress. Your mornings, non-negotiable. Your focus blocks, sacred. Your energy, protected like gold. No more leaking your future in group chats, gossip, or mental clutter. This isn't discipline for discipline's sake. This is wartime clarity. Because if you're serious about becoming undeniable, you have to stop tolerating what weakens your edge. That means food. That means media. That means the people who drain your spirit because they don't recognize the version of you that's emerging. Let them go. They weren't meant to understand this level. This level wasn't meant to be explained. It was meant to be embodied. And the more you live it, the less you'll need to talk about it. Because there's something holy about the silence of a person in alignment. You don't have to sell yourself. You don't have to prove your worth. You just move. And your energy speaks for you. That's what this 90-day transformation is really about. It's not about checking boxes. It's about reclaiming authority over your life. You've stopped being a passive character in someone else's story. You've picked up the pen. You're writing it now, word by word, habit by habit. And let's be honest, not every day feels powerful. Some days are friction. Some days are flat. Some days feel like nothing's changing. But that's the test. Not of your capability, of your commitment. Can you keep building when it feels slow? Can you stay locked in when the results haven't arrived yet? Can you trust the system you built, not because it feels good, but because it's right? Most people quit in the silence, but not you. You've reprogrammed your brain to interpret silence as a signal to go deeper, not to retreat, to sharpen, to execute, to rise. And when the storm hits, because it will, you don't fall apart. You fall into place because you've trained for it, because you've removed the randomness. Because this time, you didn't build your life on motivation. You built it on identity. That's the core. It's not about trying harder. It's about becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to be convinced to rise. Because this is who you are now. A finisher, a builder, a leader of your own damn life. And here's the magic no one expects. At some point, this stops feeling like effort. It starts feeling like you. It's no longer a challenge. It's a rhythm. It's a way of moving through life that feels congruent. And once that happens, you don't push anymore. You're pulled by purpose, pulled by alignment, pulled by a future so clear, so non-negotiable, that hesitation becomes foreign to you. And when people ask, how are you so consistent, you don't even know how to answer. Because consistency isn't something you try to be anymore. It's just who you are. This is what the world never sees. They see the results, the transformation, the energy. They say you changed, but they didn't see you in the quiet. They didn't see you rebuilding your identity. One decision at a time. They didn't see the internal war, the early mornings, the brutal honesty, the decisions to let go of old habits, old friends, old identities that no longer served you. They didn't see you bleeding for a future that hadn't even shown up yet. But now it's here. Now it's real and they can feel it. So don't slow down. Don't shrink. Don't explain. Just keep stacking. Keep executing. Keep walking like the person you've already become, even when no one's cheering, because eventually they'll stop asking what you're doing and start asking how you did it. And your answer will be simple. I didn't talk. I built. Before we go any further, let me know what you think. Like and share. If you think this content deserves to reach more people, you didn't rise because the world gave you a window. You rose because you built your own door, because you stopped knocking and started claiming. And that's the thing about becoming undeniable. You don't ask for attention. You become so precise, so focused, so consistent, that attention has no choice but to find you. This is not confidence, this is certainty. And certainty doesn't shout. It moves differently. You walk into rooms now with quiet fire, not because you've mastered everything, but because you've mastered yourself. And that mastery, it echoes. It echoes in the way you speak. It echoes in the discipline woven into your routine. It echoes in the way your eyes don't dart around looking for approval anymore because you've already approved of yourself. You've signed your own permission slip. You've stopped auditioning. You've started embodying. And now everything you touch multiplies. Not because of magic, because of alignment. You stopped watering distractions. You started pouring into purpose. And purpose rewards the ones who stay long after it stops being comfortable. You want to know who the most dangerous person in the room is? It's not the loudest, it's not the fastest. It's the one who has nothing to prove and everything to build. And that's you now. You don't need approval. You need momentum. And you've built it day by day, in silence, in sweat, in structure. That's why you're different. You've stopped chasing peaks. You've learned how to fall in love with the plateau, because the plateau is where most people quit. But you made it your training ground. You stopped needing every day to feel exciting. You just needed it to be aligned. And that's the secret to high performance. You don't wait for the wave. You become the rhythm. Now you don't start over every Monday. You don't rewrite your plan every time it gets uncomfortable. You hold the line. You keep showing up. You trust the compounding effect of 90 days of execution, and you know what that turns into. Not just results, reputation. And reputation is what opens doors. Not because you begged for them to open, but because people started realizing you don't flinch, you don't fold, you follow through. That's rare. That's magnetic. And it only comes from being the same person when no one is looking. You don't need to convince them anymore. You don't need to hype it up. They'll feel the shift before they ever see the results. Because real transformation feels like gravity shifting. They used to overlook you. Now they can't ignore you. Because when you become undeniable, your silence makes more noise than their shouting ever will. So keep building. Let them guess where you went. Let them think you disappeared. Let them assume you fell off. Don't defend it. Don't explain it. Just build. Because the truth is they don't need to understand. They weren't meant to. They didn't feel the moment you hit rock bottom. They didn't hear the war inside your mind. They didn't see the version of you that said no more. I don't care who sees it. I'm changing now. They don't need to see it. They'll feel it when the work is done. So stay in the shadows if you must. Hide in the silence. Move through the dark. Because what's being built here isn't for show. It's for shock. It's for the moment you re-emerge not with noise, but with evidence. Not with potential, but with proof. And that proof, it can't be argued. It can't be ignored. It can't be denied because that's what you've become, undeniable. You are now the version of yourself you used to admire. The one who doesn't skip days. The one who doesn't flinch when it's hard. The one who doesn't wait for inspiration to strike because you've trained yourself to move without it. That's what separates you now. You're not guessing anymore. You're executing with precision, with clarity, with standards that do not move. And when people ask you how you did it, you'll tell them the truth. I stopped scrolling. I stopped searching. I stopped waiting to be picked. I locked in. And I never let go. 29, 46. Because when you give yourself 90 days, not kind of, not almost, not halfway, but fully committed, you will not walk out the same. This isn't about hustle. This is about identity reconstruction. It's about becoming the kind of person who's done with self-doubt, done with cycles, done with excuses, done living a life 40% below capacity and calling it fine. This is about unleashing the full weight of who you really are, the version that never needed permission, only discipline. And now that you've built it, you'll never go back, because once you've tasted what it's like to wake up in alignment, to live without negotiating with your old self, to execute daily without needing hype or external permission, you realize one thing. You don't have to chase greatness. You have to unleash it. It was never out there. It was always in you, buried under doubt, covered by habits, guarded by fear. And now finally, free. There's something different in your eyes now. Not fire steel. You don't burn to prove, you burn to build. You don't rise to impress. You rise because anything less feels like betrayal. That's the final shift, when discipline stops being punishment and starts being peace. When effort is no longer something you endure, but something you crave, because now your days are no longer filled with guilt, clutter, or hesitation. They're filled with direction, with rhythm, with gravity pulling you towards something so real, so aligned, so inevitable that doubt can't breathe in your atmosphere anymore. You used to wonder what would happen if I finally locked in. Now you know you didn't need perfect conditions. You didn't need a breakthrough moment. You just needed one decision. And 90 days of proof. And now here you stand, not waiting, not hoping, just moving, with a level of clarity that can't be faked, with a level of consistency that doesn't need praise. This is the version of you that others never saw coming, because you built it in the silence they didn't respect, in the moments they thought didn't matter, in the days where most people would have quit, but you didn't. You stayed, you showed up, you executed, even when it was boring, even when it felt invisible, even when your old habits begged for one more excuse. That's why you're undeniable now, because you learned how to lead yourself. And that's the rarest form of power on the planet. The kind no one can give you, and no one can take away. Leadership over your mind, your energy, your actions. Not one day, every day. And now the game changes. Not because the world shifted, but because you did. You move with purpose. You speak with weight. You don't react. You respond. You don't follow. You create paths, and when uncertainty comes, as it always does, you no longer shrink. You no longer spiral. You sit with it. You stare it down. You move anyway, because power doesn't mean never feeling fear. Power means fear no longer makes decisions for you. Let's be clear. The new you doesn't have more time. You just have less tolerance for wasting it. You don't have more talent. You just stopped diluting it. You don't have more answers. You just stopped waiting for permission to act without them. That's how you rebuilt your life. Not through intensity, through precision. Through showing up when no one clapped. Through doing what others postponed. Through asking every single day, what would the undeniable version of me do right now? and then doing it, even when it was inconvenient, even when no one saw it, even when the results hadn't shown up yet, because you trusted process over emotion. You trusted identity over inspiration, and you traded short-term stimulation for long-term elevation. And now you don't need reminders. You don't need hype. You move with rhythm. You move with reverence for the gift of your time, for the discipline you earned, for the freedom you built. That's what this was always about. Not status, not image, not noise, freedom. Freedom from guilt, from excuses, from inconsistency, from the shallow life you used to call normal. You don't live there anymore. You've moved, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. The address of your life is now locked in clarity and driven by vision. And it didn't take years. It didn't take perfection. It took 90 days of execution. And now you see it everywhere. The gap between people who scroll and people who build. The gap between people who wait and people who move. The gap between potential and power. And you've crossed it. Now you walk differently. Now you rest differently. Now you speak differently. Because everything you do is aligned with one unshakable truth. I am no longer available for average. And because of that one standard, the world responds differently to you, not because it changed, because you became impossible to ignore. You earned your own respect. You stopped being seduced by easy. You stopped being addicted to potential. You stopped fantasizing about someday and started doing the work today with the energy you had in the time you had, with the clarity you carved out yourself. No hype, no noise, just proof. So what now? Now you protect it. You protect what you've built like it's sacred because it is. You say no faster. You scroll slower, if at all. You surround yourself with those who build quietly, not those who talk loudly. And you never forget where this started. It didn't start with a miracle. It started with a moment, a decision. The moment you said, I'm not going back. I'm not asking again. I'm not pretending. This version of me isn't real. This is me now. And from here forward, you live like it's true. You move like it's real. You act like you've already arrived because part of you has. You're not becoming anymore. You became not in the eyes of the world, in the silence of your own discipline, in the structure that sharpened you, in the identity you earned, one decision, one rep, one aligned choice at a time. So hold that line, hold the rhythm, hold the standard. You didn't do this to go back. You did this to never need to start over again. This isn't about hustle anymore. It's about harmony. You're no longer sprinting for the sake of progress. You're moving with rhythm, every step in sync with purpose. That's what happens after 90 days of truth. You stop trying to escape who you were. You start expanding who you are. And it's no longer painful. It's automatic. Because identity doesn't whisper anymore. It commands. You wake up and you don't ask, what should I do today? You already know because you've become a person who doesn't wait for clarity. You carry it. You don't check the weather before moving. You don't consult your emotions. You move because you've proven you can trust yourself. And that is the root of everything. Self-trust, not ego, not hype, but knowing deep in your bones that when you say you'll do something, you do it. You've rebuilt your name with yourself. You've repaired the internal contract. You've created a new standard not just for how others treat you, but how you treat yourself. And now every win, every breakthrough, every quiet victory, it hits differently, not because you need the credit, but because you know what it cost you to get here. They didn't see the reps, but you did. They didn't feel the resistance, but you carried it, and you turned it into momentum. And now it moves you. This is why the 90-day transformation is so powerful. Not because of what you gain, but because of what you leave behind. You bury the old story. You bury the patterns that kept you stuck. You bury the identity that kept shrinking to fit other people's expectations. You burn the blueprint they handed you and build something of your own. And that version, it doesn't ask for success. It commands it through effort, through focus, through undeniable consistency. Most people never get here because this place requires silence, sacrifice, stillness, structure. It requires becoming the kind of person who stops trying to stay motivated and becomes someone who moves without it. You've built a life that no longer depends on dopamine. You've made peace with boredom. You've become addicted not to progress, but to alignment. That's what they never teach you. The elite are not chasing more. They're executing the same things deeper, sharper, cleaner, every single day. And while the world gets bored and resets again, you just keep stacking habits, stacking wins, stacking hours of quiet execution until the compound effect becomes unignorable. And that's what's happening now. You are no longer visible to average because average doesn't recognize discipline this deep. Average doesn't recognize structure this tight. Average doesn't understand peace that's built in pain. But you do. You've lived it. And now, you lead with it. Because what they once called obsession, they now call standard. What they once mocked as too much, they now chase in silence. Let them watch. Let them wonder how you flip the switch. You don't owe them answers. You owe yourself execution. You don't owe them an explanation. You owe your future a level of focus so unshakable that nothing gets through it. You are the gatekeeper. Now, you decide what enters your space. You decide what earns your energy. That is freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever you feel. Freedom is doing what aligns with your mission even when you don't feel like it. Because you've seen what happens when you let your moods drive the car. You crash, you stall, you circle the same goals year after year, calling it trying. But not anymore. Now you're not trying. You're becoming with every rep, with every early morning, with every boundary, with every single time you choose vision over validation. And the result is not just success, it's sovereignty. You no longer belong to circumstance, you belong to purpose, you belong to the standard you chose. And now that you've become this version, you never go back. How could you? You've seen what happens when you go all in. You've seen what happens when you eliminate the noise, cut the excuses, silence the doubt, and just do the work. You've seen what happens when you stop waiting to be discovered and start becoming undeniable. So this is the moment. The moment where the old world still thinks you're who you used to be, but you know better. You've already crossed the line, and now the results are catching up to the reality you've already built. So keep moving, keep leading, keep building. Let your rhythm become your reminder. Let your discipline become your identity. Let your execution become your proof. And when they ask, where did you go? Where have you been? How did you do it? You'll look them in the eye and say the only sentence that ever mattered, I decided. And I didn't quit. You said you wanted more, not just more money, not just more success. You wanted more respect, self-respect. You wanted more certainty, the kind no one can hand you, the kind you have to earn. You wanted more freedom, not on your calendar, but in your spirit. And now, after 90 days of decisions, you have it. Because when you change your identity, the world adjusts its response. Not out of courtesy, but out of necessity. They feel it. You don't need to say a word. Your energy says, I don't chase anymore. I attract what matches my standard. That's the secret. You don't get what you want. You get what you tolerate. And when you lower your tolerance for average in how you think, in how you speak, in how you show up, life stops handing you leftovers because you've trained it differently. You no longer entertain things that drain your frequency. You no longer explain yourself to people who haven't evolved. You no longer wait for the world to get it, because the version of you that needed to be understood, that version didn't survive the fire. The fire burned away the need to be liked. It burned away the fear of judgment. It burned away the question, what will they think? You don't ask that anymore. You only ask one thing. Does this match the future I'm building? And if it doesn't, it goes. That's how you became unshakable. Not by addition, by subtraction. You cut the noise. You stripped the fat. You walked away from anything that couldn't grow with you, not in hate, in honor, because honoring your calling requires protecting it. Not everyone gets access. Not everyone earns proximity. You stopped letting weak conversations touch your strong future. You stopped letting average influence extraordinary. You stopped opening your door to people who never once opened their mind. And because of that, you grew. And not just forward, upward, you've elevated. And elevation changes everything. It changes your posture. It changes your pace. It changes the rooms you walk into and the people who stay in them. But here's the part no one prepared you for. Elevation is lonely because most people never rise. They'd rather watch than walk. They'd rather scroll than build. They'd rather complain about the system than construct one of their own. But not you. You gave up comfort to claim clarity. You gave up distraction to claim direction. You gave up addiction to comfort to claim command. And that's what you have now, command over your life. You wake up with intention. You train with focus. You move with purpose. You no longer beg for opportunity. You build it. You no longer dream about momentum. You generate it. Not from hype, from habit, from doing the work, whether or not it's noticed, posted, or rewarded. You don't need a trophy. You have transformation. You don't need applause. You have alignment. You don't need motivation. You've built momentum that pulls you forward even on the days you feel empty. That's the true reward, not what you've achieved, but who you've become. Because now the world could collapse, and you'd still move. They could doubt you, cancel you, overlook you. And you'd still rise because power is no longer something outside of you. It's in you, woven into your breath, anchored into your thoughts, baked into your systems. They can't take it. They can't shake it. They can't replicate it. You've become the kind of person who builds in silence, executes in solitude, and shows up so consistently that even life's resistance gets tired of trying to stop you. That's what makes you undeniable, and now you protect that version every single day. You guard your mind like it's your mission. You protect your energy like a fortress. You design your life like an architect who finally knows the value of every minute, every word, every step. Because 90 days ago you were surviving. Now you're constructing something permanent. And it's not just the results you've built, it's the resilience, it's the rhythm, it's the reputation with yourself. You don't owe anyone an update. You don't owe them access. You don't even owe them understanding. All you owe is execution. And so you keep going, not because you have to, but because now you can't stop. You've trained too long to start over. You've felt too much to forget who you are. You've seen what's possible when you say, "This time I go all the way in." And when they ask for the blueprint, when they wonder how you did it without shortcuts, without noise, without seeking validation, tell them the truth. I picked a path. I removed the options. I stopped talking, and I built. Because when you become undeniable, you don't hope to be remembered. You leave evidence in your work, in your words, in your walk, and in the quiet ripple of power that follows you into every room. So hold the line. This isn't the end. This is the new beginning. The one that requires no grand announcement, no reinvention, no restart. You're not a project anymore. You're a force. And now the world has no choice but to feel you. What do you think of this part? Feel free to leave a comment below. I read it all and appreciate every single line. Hit like if you're ready to move forward with me. Don't rush to share this moment. Don't post it. Don't shout it. Let the silence carry it deeper, because what just happened here wasn't about inspiration. It was about permission. The kind you don't wait for, the kind you give yourself. You already know what to do. It's not new, but this time, the decision isn't partial. It's total. No starting over. No fallback. No half-effort habits. You're no longer here to be seen. You're here to be felt. So close this screen, like you're closing a chapter, and open the next 90 days like it's a blueprint no one else has ever followed. No more announcements. No more waiting. Just build quietly, relentlessly, until the version of you they thought was gone becomes the one they can't ignore.